Welcome everybody. In this tutorial, we're going to be making another casual game here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to an HD landscape here. And the reason why we want to do HD is because you can use this on multiple devices. And if it's a landscape, you can use it on, let's say, TVs, phones, pretty much anywhere. Whereas if you do use the portrait, it's a little bit harder. So here we go. We have this here. Now what we need to do is we're going to add in a background. And in order to do that, we're going to double click add the sprite. And this sprite for the time being is going to be is simply going to be a dark gray, and we'll make it lighter than usual, and we'll simply close out there. Let's change the name of this to background so that we can actually notice this as a background here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to say that that's the background here. Hop over to the layer here, and we're going to just type in background, add in a new layer, and lock the background. So we pretty much have all of this here. All right. And what we're also going to do is we're going to add in a touch here. And this will allow us to simply click on this here as well. So this background, what it's going to do is we're going to be changing the background color, and you'll see why we're going to be doing that in just a second here. All right. So now that we have this all set up, we'll talk about the next part of the game in the next tutorial. See you then. Welcome back. All right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having a sprite here, and we need to make sure that we're on the other layer here. We'll go and we'll add in a sprite, and we'll make this kind of an off-white here. The exact color doesn't really matter, but just because we're using a lot of this color within this course here, we can simply make it 248 by 248 by 248. So all we're doing is we're having a simple item here, and what we're going to be doing is we're definitely going to be making this change colors. So in order to do that, we need to add in the animation here, and we're going to add in a few frames. Okay, and we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think maybe 5 colors will work. They'll all be kind of pastel, so I'm going to go and drag this one here, and simply we'll go green. The next one will be kind of an orangish color, green, orange, and while we're here, we'll make it kind of a bluish color. And they'll all be pastels because the pastels work great against this background here. And you always want to be thinking about color choice because color choice is extremely important in games. And what that means is that, for example, enemies in the game usually have a red color, and good objects such as power-ups are usually either blue or green. It might seem very trivial or simple, but it is actually fairly important. All right, so we'll make this kind of a pink color, and this one here we have blue, orange, green, and we might be able to get away with just those colors. Yeah, so let's go ahead, let's make this a total of 5 colors. You'll notice that it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's because computers start counting at 0. It's called zero-based counting. And you can see that that works like that there. So what we're going to be doing in the next tutorials is we're going to be setting up the touch so that whenever we touch anywhere on the screen, it's going to change the color. This concludes the tutorial. Welcome back. All right, let's go ahead and let's run this and see what happens. So we run it, and you can see that the animations just play. And the reason for that is that when you actually go into the animations, what happens is that the animations just automatically play. So let's take a look at that here. Let's take a look at the animations. And if you click the animations, you can change the speed, you can change the loop, you can change the repeat count, you can change all of these properties here if you want to. But we don't really want to do that here. What we want to do instead, I'm just going to push escape to get out of that, is we're going to, first of all, we want it to, whenever we touch it, to change the color. So what we're going to do is, let's see, before we do that, we have the sprite here. We'll call this wall color, just like that, because that way we know what it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to say system on start of layout. And on the start of layout, we're going to do a wall color. And then if you type in animation, okay, we're going to do stop. We're just going to simply stop the animation. So let's take a look at that here, and it just stops like that here. Now, if you click, it doesn't do anything, and rightly so, because we haven't set anything up yet. So we're going to go ahead and double click and add in touch, and we're going to say on any touch start. Okay, this is the start, not the end, and this is actually really important. In fact, I can even demonstrate the difference in between the two. But we'll do on any touch start, and we'll say wall color. We can do set animation. Okay, we can do set animation or set the frame here, and then we have to set the frame number to the next frame number here. Well, this is a bit of an issue. First of all, this doesn't exactly work. Second of all, we need to make it work and make it more scalable. So what we need to do is we'll call this wall color, okay, and we'll make it equal to 0. And what we'll do is, instead of setting the animation here, on any touch start, we'll simply go to System, Add to Wall Color. So we'll add to Wall Color here. And now we need to actually update this. So we'll go to System, and we'll go to Compare Variable. Actually, we need to go to System, Every Tick, and then we need to set Wall Color, Animation. We're going to set the animation to set the frame to Wall Color. Just like that here. Pretty cool. So what this means here is that when we touch it, you can see that it changes. And then you'll notice that it doesn't loop around. We have to actually add in that functionality. But the thing about this is that it's not crashing. The game isn't crashing. Technically, we're on frame 22, but you know what? There is no frame 22. Let's take a look at this here. You see we only have 5 different frames labeled 0 to 4. In other game engines, specifically if you're into console or native game engines, if you did that, the game would crash. So you always want to make sure that you have a backup here. So what that means here is that if we go System Compare Variable, Wall Color is equal to 5, which is the top here. We're going to set the wall color to we're going to go System, Set Value of Wall Color back to 0. I'm going to go ahead and run that here. So we got, and you can see that it kind of loops around here. Now, I said I would show you the difference between on touch start and on touch end. So let's try that here. So on touch, call this end, on any touch end. What this means here is that when you click it, and I'm holding down the mouse, but when you lift it up, it will change. The other way is when you simply touch it, it starts at the beginning. So we want on any touch start. Just in case you want to have the second one, you're more than welcome to. Although I find personally that this makes a little bit more sense. Now, changing color is probably one of the easiest and frankly one of my favorite game mechanics to use. Now, you have to remember that a game mechanic is something that the user interacts with, and changing color is very easy to implement, as you just saw, because this tutorial is less than 5 minutes, and I'm explaining it along the way, and it's actually really cool. This includes the tutorial. Now, this logic works out well. However, there's a better way to do it. And whenever you have any kind of an array, and by the way, this is kind of an array or a list or anything like that, you want to see if you can use a count property to that. And let's take a look at that here. So what happens here if I add in another item here? Let's add that in here. If I add in another item, and let's say it's a yellow item. Okay, we'll add in a yellow item here, and this is maybe a little bit lighter. More of a, there we go, perfect. So if we add in this yellow here, you're never going to see the yellow when we run it, right? And the reason for that is that we've set up our logic so that the wall color is 5. So you'd have to go manually enter that in. Now, so far, there's only 4 points of logic in this game. In this case, all you'd have to do is simply change wall color to 5. However, if your game was more complex, you're going to have to use a little bit of better logic here. And what is that logic? Let's delete this wall color here. Let's go to System, Compare to Values, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to Wall Color, and this is the wall color that we've been using so far as the sprite. In fact, we should probably even change this variable here, but let's go to wall color anyway. And then we're going to go to dot and we're going to go animation frame count. And what this is going to do is it's going to count the amount of frames in there. So let's go ahead, and if it says equal to, and say if the first value is equal to, if the first value wall color is, actually this should be the second one. So we're just going to go ahead and put that in there. And the first value is wall color. Okay, so if wall color is equal to animation frame count, we're going to set it back to 0. Okay, 2, 3, 4, and then we have yellow and back to 0. So you can see that it works quite a bit better here. Now, one thing that you need to know is sometimes you can get these two mixed up, the first and second value. As a programmer, I get this mixed up all the time, and that's why you want to test it. You always want to test to make sure that you have that you make everything work and that you get the right value in the right place, because it's very easy to mix up values, you know, being greater than or less than or whatever, and just because it works in theory doesn't mean it actually works in practice. So you should always test it. This concludes the tutorial. So now that we have this wall color here, what we're going to do is we're going to change this global variable to, we'll call this color selector. Now, one thing that is absolutely amazing about Construct 2 is as soon as you change that variable, it changes all the variables within the project. And that may seem really simple and really basic, but in other languages it does not do that. So keep that in mind. So now that we have this here, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to spawn objects here, and they're simply going to go through this. And the goal of this is to match the color of this little bar to the actual color that's coming at you. In order to do that, we need to make a new sprite here. And what we're going to do is we're going to clone this object type here. And that actually looks pretty cool. And we're going to call this block color. And this is block color is simply going to get spawned here. Now this is a little big. We actually could make this a little bit smaller. In order to change this here, what we're going to do is we are going to simply go up to this resize here, and we're going to simply say, let's say 150. I think 150 is pretty good, and it will scale accordingly. So that's probably pretty good. Let's take a look at this here, and let's see that. Okay, now you can see that there's a problem there, and this is why we test items here. Let's take a look at this here. So this here is 150, and this here is not 150 anymore. So when you resize it here, you have to click apply to the whole animation, and you can see here that all of them are now 150. So really important to know, and you can see here that that works out well. 150 might be a little bit too small. I'm thinking we can have 3 of these here. Let's make it 200. And one thing that you'll notice about development is you do need to take a couple of extra seconds to change it here. Okay. Make sure we apply that to the whole animation, and they're all the same size. Perfect. And as of this, this tutorial is only 2 minutes so far, but you can see that just making the size a little bit better is a lot better. So take the extra time to make your game look good. Now the other thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate this, and we're going to add in an isAlive variable, and we make it a number, and isAlive is usually a Boolean, which is either true or false, but in this case we're making a number, which is either 1 or 0. And what this is that, you know, is the player alive? Is the game running? So let's go ahead, let's go to System, Every Tick, and we're going to rotate, just for an animation, we're just going to simply rotate that. And we'll hop back into this here. We'll go to System Every Tick, and if you push C for condition, it will add in another condition to that. And we'll go to Compare Variable, and we're going to go to isAlive is equal to 1. And while we're here, we'll do wall color is equal, oh, actually it's not wall color that we want, it is block color. And block color is going to equal to, or we're going to rotate clockwise, and well, let's rotate it 5 degrees here. So all this is going to do is it's just going to simply rotate it there. Okay, and for some reason rotating it this way just looks weird. It should be the other way around. So I'm going to go ahead and do that the other way around. Block color is going to be counterclockwise, and we'll do 5 degrees. So we'll just simply add that in there. Yeah, so since they're going to be moving this way, that is from right to left, it makes sense that we're rotating it that way. Okay, and rotation is the easiest way to add in animation to your project. Another thing that you should notice is that this game is really simple. The art is really simple. And when the art is really simple, the scaling of the art is much easier to do. So if you've ever tried to make a game and the art has been really detailed, scaling that art to different screens is really challenging because it might not look good. In this case, it does, if we scale this, it will look good because detail is not your friend as an indie developer. This concludes the tutorial. Next, we have to make this block move. I'm just going to move it to the center here. And let's go ahead, let's add in a behavior. And this behavior, of course, is going to be of bullet. Now, this bullet here is simply going to add in motion to it. Now, that looks kind of neat, except it's not doing what we want. That's actually really cool. But what it's doing here is that it's technically going forward, but this because it's rotating, it's always going forward at this rotation. So in order to get rid of that, we have to do set angle no. Let's go to run that here, and you can see that it kind of moves. But it's moving the wrong way. So how do we fix that? Well, first of all, we have to go to the event sheet here, and we'll go to block color, on created, and we'll go to block color, and then we'll do set angle of motion, and we're just going to make it 180. So if we run this here, there we go. Now there's another thing that's kind of an issue, and that other thing is the animation is actually playing here. So block color on animation, we need to stop the animation, so it goes animation stop. And there we go. It should be just white there, which is exactly what we want it to be. Okay, so we're going to actually set one of the colors here. Now, there's two ways of actually making this or setting this here. One thing you can do is you can actually add in an instance variable, and this instance variable is going to be, let's say, called color selection, or we can actually even just call it color. Okay, we'll call it color 0. And this is a local variable, meaning that you can only use it with this object here. The other way to do it is with a global variable, and for a simple game like this, it's actually not a bad idea. I find global variables in Construct 2 a little bit more easy to work with than the instance variables, but that's just me personally. Because I haven't shown you really how to do this yet, I'm going to show you how to do that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to say on created, and we're going to go to system. And so we're going to go to block color, and we're going to go to set value of color, and we're going to go to round random. Okay, round random, and it's going to be between 0 and I believe 5. Yes, 0 and 5, because we have 6 items here. And we need to round it because when you put the random, it will give you decimal numbers, so it might be 2.5, 3.1, etc. So we need to round it in order for it to be a number. If you don't do this, it won't work. So we're going to round that number here. And we've stopped the animation, but we're going to round the number here. And another thing we need to do is you need to go to block color, and we're going to go to just type in animation, and we're going to do set frame to, and then we're going to do in theory, we could just do color, but what we need to do is go block color dot color, just like that here, and that will set it to the color here. So let's take a look at that here. So it will simply do green, green, okay, and it's doing green a lot, but keep in mind that these are random. Okay, there we go, and you can see yellow. And indeed, they all are there, and so it is a number between 1 and 5, and so that is how it's supposed to work. So there we go. And what this is going to do is what I'm going to try and show you is you're going to have to make it orange. And there you go. That's what we're trying to do here. And we got white, and then if you get it wrong like this, it's going to not work there. Okay. So now that we have that set up, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Next thing we need to do is we need to spawn this object here. So what we're going to do is we're going to spawn it either around kind of 150. We're going to spawn it in 3 locations. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in a global variable, and we'll call this block count. And what we're going to do is we're going to count the amount of blocks here. So when block color is created, we're going to set we're going to go to set value of block count to 1. So what this is, actually we need to simply add it, not set the value. We're going to add to block count. So every time that the block is created, it's going to add 1 to block count. And for the first part of the game, we're only really going to have 1 block on the screen. In fact, for most of the game, you can have 1 or 2 blocks, but we're just going to have 1 block. So what we need to do is we're going to go to say system every X seconds, and let's say every 3 seconds here. But always what I like to do is I always like to add in a global variable, and we'll call this block spawn time, and we'll make it equal to 3 seconds. And in the system, every 3 seconds we'll call block spawn time. And whenever I use numbers, I like to make sure that I use variables in place of that. So every block spawn time, we're going to go and system create object. We're going to create a block, and we're going to just create a block color. And for the most part, we'll just say 135 at the moment. We're going to deal with that randomness in a second. Another thing that you need to do is you need to find a way to make this work here. Now you can see here that it's not the X value that we want. We want the Y value as one. It's the X value of 135, but the X value actually has to be 2100. Let's put it here. So roughly 2100, 135. In fact, we could probably move it down to 200, just because the block is big enough to make that work. So let's go ahead and run that. So you can see here that it is running, and you can see that another block gets put here. But you notice that more of 1 block is spawning per the game here. And so how do we get rid of that? We need to go and add in a condition, which I'm just going to push the C button here, and then I'm going to go to system, compare variable. If block count is equal to 0, then we're going to go ahead and create that object. So we'll go ahead and run that here, and you can see that the block count, all right, there we go, and then no more will spawn because we haven't actually destroyed that block. Let's go ahead and let's do that here. Let's go, and we can actually probably just clone this object here for simplicity's sake. And we can actually delete this here. And what I'll do is I'll make this a really, really bright pink. I always like to make my objects really bright pink when I'm doing this here, because I know that I won't be using this in the game, this color in the game. So I know that it is a color that is supposed to do something else. Now, what this is going to do is we're going to call this block kill. And what block kill is going to do is, let's hop into our item here, and it says if block color is on collision with block kill, we're going to destroy. We're going to go to block color, destroy, and what we can do is we can go to block color on destroyed. We're going to say system subtract from block count. So we're going to set that back down to 0 here. Now what's interesting about this is that we're not set, you notice how we're using add and subtract? Well, just in case you want to, let's say, add in more blocks and subtract blocks, this works a little bit better versus just setting a block here. So what it's going to do is it's going to simply kill it, and then it should add another one here. And this can go on forever and ever. And the reason that this works is simply because, we have 1 block here, and then when it goes off the screen, it will get destroyed. It's very important to destroy game objects because every game object that you create will create a little bit of memory, and the more game objects, the more memory, and that means that your game can lag. So you want to make sure that you can do that here. One last item here is you also want to make sure that this happens off screen. and you want to make sure it happens just off screen like that. And that way it just adds in a little bit more finesse. All right, this concludes the tutorial. Welcome back. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to spawn these at 3 different locations. So it's either going to be 150, and we can pull up our trusty calculator here. And since the height of this is 1080, we can go 1080 minus 150 is 930. So we can do either 150, 930, or 500. So how do we do that? Well, let's go ahead and let's take a look at how we can do this here. We can go block location, and it's going to be a value between 1 and 3. And you can see here that we're going to add in a subcondition to this item here, block spawn time and block count. Subcondition is going to be if block compare variable is going to be block location is equal to 0. And I'm going to cut and simply paste that in here. And I'm going to copy and paste that in here, change this to 1, and then change this to 2. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we need to change the actual Y position. So in this case, it's going to be 540, which is in the middle, and then I believe it was 930. 930, and there we go. So 200, 540, and then 930. Okay. Now this all works well, except for when we create the block color, we need to set a random here, and when we destroy, we also need to set that random as well. So the random here is going to be system set value of block location to round. And remember, you always have to round if you're going to do the random number, especially if you're using counting numbers. We're going to do round, random, 0 to 2, just like that here. And then when we destroy the object here, it will be 0 to 2 as well. Let's set the let's set that here, and there we go. You can see that it spawned it in a different location, and it will spawn it in a different location, and there we go. Now, technically, do we actually even need to have it in a different spot? The answer is technically no. No, we do not. But what we can do is later on, we could have more than one object on the screen if we wanted to. Okay, so this here sets up the game to be in the spot here. Now, so far we haven't seen this here, and as soon as I said that, it actually did work. So let's just take a quick recap of what we've done so far. We've set up the block color here. We've also set up the block rotation. We set up the block color, and we've also set up the block position. This concludes the tutorial. Next thing we need to do here is we need to go and set up the score here. And before we do that, let's go and let's add in a text object. And we'll double click, add in a text, and we'll kind of move this down here. Let's change the color to other, and we're going to make it that gray color, that off-white color, because I love off-whites personally. We'll go ahead and do that there. We'll set the text to 0, and we'll also set the size to 100. And while we're here, let's do the horizontal alignment to right, and then we just need to make this bigger. Okay, it's always good to add in a margin here, so let's go ahead and run that, and you can see that we have a nice object there. Let's hop back into Construct 2, and let's go take a look at how we add in a score. First of all, we need to add in a global variable, and we'll call this global variable score. And the next thing we need to do is on this collision block here, what we're going to do is we're going to set this to system, add to score. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's add the score there. And what should happen is, let's take a look at that here. And what will happen is that when the block gets destroyed, it will get, it should add to score. But one thing we didn't do here is we did not set the text. So let's hop into our every tick, and we'll go to text, set text. And one thing that you'll know that you see me doing a lot is I just simply type it into the search box here, which is the best productivity feature in any engine I've ever seen. But one thing you want to do is when you see an object here, you want to see and take a look at all these objects around here just so that you can find out what you can do here. And so that way, you know, you can do set text and it becomes super easy. I'm just going to go ahead and put a score here and I'm going to run it. And that way, we know that the score is being set here. So let's go take a look at this here. Now there is a bit of another problem here. Notice how two of these are getting spawned at the same time. We're going to take a look at how that, what that problem is and why it's happening in the next tutorial. This concludes the tutorial. In the last tutorial, you saw more than one block being spawned. Well, this works, and it's kind of a bit of a problem. What the problem here is that the every block spawn time seconds is causing a bit of an issue. And in order to solve problems like this, what you can do is you can actually go and use the debug layout, and you can see that there's all these different kinds of items here. In this case, we can take a look at the global variables. Right? And you can see here that in this case it said block count is equal to 2. Okay, and now block count is equal to 2 again, and it's going to equal to 2, and now it is equal to 1 here. So let's take a look at another thing that we need to do here. So if block count is equal to 0, okay, what we need to do is you need to add in another item here, which is trigger once while true, and it will only trigger this once while true. So if you add that in there, it should only trigger it once here. And just because we're debugging this, I like to use the debug layout as much as we possibly can. Now it is possible that it is going to get set to 2 again, and in that case we have to add in one other piece of logic here. Now you're probably wondering, well, you know, the logic seems fine. Why is it acting so weird? Well, the reason is that in the back end, especially with HTML5, it's a little unreliable. So you might have to add in a few extra items here. So if block count is, we're going to say greater than or equal to 2, okay, we're just going to simply put the block count back to 1. You set the value of block count back to 1 like that here. Let's add in the debug layout again, and we'll take a look at this block count at the bottom here, and hopefully this does indeed work. Okay, and so you can see here that it does. It did for a very quick second here add in 2 here, but another problem came up, and that it equals to -1. So what we need to do is we need to copy and paste this down here, and we'll say block count is less than 0. We'll say block count to 1 here. Now, what's happening here is that block count, this random here, is getting set more than once, and that's what happens here. And we have to add in the trigger once while true here as well. So if on collision here, and in this case, trigger once while true is not there, but it's setting this round to multiple. What it does is it sets it, and let's just take a look at this here. Actually, you'll see what it means. So we have block location, okay, and you can see it's 2, and then 1, and then it should be 0, and that's all well and good. But it looks like actually the problem is 6. Sometimes the problem doesn't, when you run it, sometimes the problem doesn't happen. Let's just run this one more time, and let's just see if this works here. So yeah, I think the problem is fixed here, and we can always take a look at these global variables here. All right, this concludes the tutorial. Next thing we need to do is we need to set in the game logic here. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to add in a function. And a function is kind of like a place to put your code. It can also do work for you by passing in variables. In this case here, what we're going to do is we're going to say system compare two values. And the value, of course, is if, for example, the wall, and I believe its color selector is not equal to, and we need to say its block color. So system is color selector is not equal to, second value is going to be block color dot color. If it's not equal to block color dot color, we're going to go and we're going to call a function, and this function is going to be called reset game, like this here. And we're going to call that function here. We're going to go function, call function, and we're going to just say reset game. And here we're just going to go system restart layout, and that's going to work for now. Okay, so here we go. You can see that this moves over, but if we make it the wrong number here, well, it doesn't quite exactly work. Okay, you can see that it just simply changes. And let's take a look at what we need to do here. So if color selector is not equal to block color, we're going to simply reset the game. But we also have to add in the block color is on collision with wall color. So those two items have to be there. So if I change this here, you can see that if I make it the wrong color, it simply resets the game. And that way you have to let it pass through, and there you go. And if I go and make it work here, and what we haven't done here is we haven't reset the global variables, okay? And for the most part, we need to take a look at how to do that. Well, when we reset the game, we have to reset the global variables. So set value of score back to 0 here, okay? And we need to do that before we restart the layout, okay? And that's pretty much it. This concludes the tutorial. Welcome back. Okay, so there's a couple things that we can do. First of all, let's go ahead and let's set the score before we actually reset the game. So we'll set the score here, and what we'll also do is we'll also wait. We'll wait, and maybe we'll wait 3 seconds before actually calling this reset game here. And while we're waiting here, let's go ahead and let's add in a 0.1 wait here, here, and here. And when we have the block count, we'll go destroy. And what this is going to do is that this is going to destroy, and it should fix up all of those other options there. So what if we take a look at this here is we have to set score to 0. What we're also going to do is we're going to go and set we're going to set value of is alive to 0 as well. Okay, and what that's going to do is that's going to stop the rotation. So you can take a look at that here, and let's just take a quick look at that here. And what I think I did is I did a little bit of testing, and I kept this big for some reason. And let's take a look at all this here. So when it connects with the wall here and it collides with it, we have to set the block color. We'll go to set speed to 0. Okay, so we'll go ahead and run that layout here. So this will come, and if it's the wrong color, you can see that it didn't quite work the way we wanted it to. Okay, we have to actually stop the bullet here, and so this here actually has to go before the wait 3 seconds. So let's run that again. So in this case, order does matter, and then you can see that it stops 1, 2, 3, and then it resets. But one thing we did not do is we did not reset the is alive to 1 here. So let's go ahead and let's paste that in here, and we'll say is alive as 1 here. Now you can either put it here, or when we can go put it up is to is start of layout, just like that here. So let's go ahead and run that, and there we go. So we can go. In this case, it works. In this case, it will not work. Okay, stops. And there you go. Everything is good to go, and so we can play the game a little bit. And there we go. And then in this case, it will get reset. Not quite. And there you go. This concludes the tutorial. Let's add in a difficulty counter here. So first of all, when the block color is created here, what we can do is we can actually set the speed to a global variable. So let's call this, we'll call this block speed, and we'll make it 400. Okay. Block speed. I don't believe we have that here. So let's go and go to the on create here. We're going to go to block color, set speed to block speed. And what that's going to do is that is going to set the speed to the block here. And what we can do is we can add to the speed, every, X seconds. So we can say, for example, every, I don't know, 3 seconds, we can go and let's go to block system, set value of block speed, or let's see, we'll add to system, add to block speed, and we'll make it, let's say 30. So every 3 seconds, we're adding 30 to block speed. Okay, and we also have to do trigger once while true. Otherwise, it will just constantly add to it. Okay, so on created, set bullet speed to block speed. I think that should be it. Let's test this for a second, and let's make it every 1 second. So every second, the speed's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, and then just play the game. And then, you can see this is faster, right? And then, there we go. There we go. And you can see it's getting quite a bit faster. Oh, didn't quite make it. Let it go. 1, 2. And we have to reset the speed because you see that the speed isn't actually getting reset. It's just getting faster and faster. So pretty cool. And you can see how this simple little game is actually quite a bit of fun. So first of all, when we go and reset here, let's go on to start of layout. And on a start of layout, we're going to say system, set value, and it's going to be block speed to indeed 400. We're just going to say when we reset it to that layout. Now, let's see, yeah, we should set the block speed to 400, or let's actually make it 500. 400 was a little slow. Okay, and make it 500, of course. Hop down all the way to the bottom here. Make it every 3 seconds, and we'll add something like 50 to it. Okay, that's probably better. Let's test this out here, and this should work. But you can see here that this game is very simple, but it's extremely effective, and it requires a little bit of memorization too. You have to memorize the order of the color, right? Yeah, and you can see this is actually ramping up pretty good here. Probably make it a little bit faster, but you can see that the difficulty gets hard pretty fast, right? And yeah, and then for some reason that one didn't get reset, and there we go. Perfect. This concludes the tutorial. Let's add in another feature. What happens if you tap the actual block here? So let's actually, so we go to touch, and then if we go on touched object, and the object is of course going to be block color. So if you touch the block color, let's set the bullet speed. So I'm going to actually just paste this in here, and it's going to be block color dot bullet dot speed minus 30. So if you tap the block color, it will simply it will be subtract. You'll be able to subtract 30 from it. But you don't want to constantly be able to do that. So let's add another instance variable, and we'll call this is speed. We'll call this speed down or something like that, and we'll make it equal 0. And let's hop back to our event sheet here, and we'll say block color speed, or set value of speed down to 1. Okay, and then we'll make another condition of block color, and then we'll say compare instance variable, and if speed down is equal to 0. This way you can't constantly slow it down. So if I click it, you can kind of see that it slows down a bit, and it's kind of a cool little thing you can do. So you click it, and let's actually test to see, bullet speed, and then minus, let's say 300. That should really slow it down. And you can see that that does indeed work. So sometimes you have to exaggerate it here. I think 50 would probably be something a little more what the user can see, right? And you can see that it doesn't indeed work, right? So yeah, it actually does indeed work, but it also changes the color. So there is that. All right, and the other reason is that if you don't put in this variable here, you'll be able to constantly slow it down. So if I, for example, toggle this disabled, watch what happens. I can just simply click on this until it stops. In fact, actually, you can click on it. Yeah, you can click on it until it stops, and that's no good either. So you do have to have that kind of check in there. This includes the tutorial. Welcome back. Okay, so that pretty much concludes this tutorial here. As you can see, we have a nice, simple, and pretty difficult game. Now, this is the point of time in the tutorial series where I give a challenge. Your challenge is to either set the color move up or down by clicking on either the bottom or the top of the screen. And I've shown you already how to do that in a different series here, but this way, it's all you have to do is simply click it, and it works here. Now, one other thing that we can do is when we put the selector here, so on any touch start, we're also going to say condition system is or system compare variable is alive is equal to 1. And that way, when you make a mistake, you can't change the color anymore. So it's little things like that. And whenever you're finished a project, you can always find something that you could do. It's just the way that it works. Now, there is a saying when you're an entrepreneur, it's better done than perfect. So you need to pick your battles and eventually release your game. I cannot stress how important it is to release your game. So your job is to go and be able to move the color up or down by selecting on either the top or the bottom of the screen. This concludes the tutorial.